John Felt here, and this is the BWO Weekly Weather Briefing for the 19th of February 2023. Well, it looks like we're going to have a lot of weather going on this week, and it's going to be because of a persistent gradient between unusually warm air in the southeast, unusually cold in the west and north central. And that's going to persist for a while. I'm also going to be talking about what looks very similar to a La Nina pattern setting up that's going to last into spring. So let's get started with today's weather briefing. Well, first off, this is the weather system we had last week. We had this area of heavy snow right here, and it was a very narrow area of heavy snow, but certainly caused some impacts. Temperatures last week, we also had some really cold weather. The areas in blue were regions where the temperature dropped to 0 or below. And matter of fact, the purple, 10 degrees below 0 or colder. So we definitely have cold air still around in spots. Matter of fact, it's sort of a weather whiplash because some areas really mild and other areas really cold. So last week, the western U.S. fairly dry, but the southeast and mid-Atlantic, Tennessee, Ohio River valleys, 1 to 3 inches of rain, locally 4 and 5, and that's that La Nina. And you know, very typically we tend to La Nina, El Nino, we tend to sort of look for that in the middle of winter, and I see more times than not that this doesn't set up till late winter and spring. So I think we're just getting into this. And even though La Nina is expected to diminish, it does look like we can expect this continuation of the weather, at least for a while. Now, we had that very narrow band of snow, and what's sort of interesting, you could go from northeast Missouri into north central Iowa and cut through that, and it's probably only one county wide that got 6 to 8 inches of snow. But it is melting very quickly. That's that area right here in orange, and this is the area that's still of really high water equivalent. We're looking at 1 to 3 and even 4 inches locally or more in that area. So that's the area of concern as far as spring snowmelt, also the northeast U.S. Okay, so over the last 24 hours, areas in orange, very rapid snowmelt. So I think that band of snow from last week's winter storms is going to be gone very quickly. And that light orange over the primary snowpack, that means that that's melting in a managed fashion, probably melting during the day, refreezing at night. That's what we want. So that's positive for reducing the spring snowmelt potential. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be adding a lot more to that area this week. Now, temperatures over the last week, hey, take a look at the northeast here. Another really mild week, and it has been a very, very mild winter over the northeast U.S., Philadelphia, Boston, New York, Washington, D.C. Very mild temperatures compared to a regular winter, and very little snow in most areas compared to a normal winter. So really enjoying it in the northeast compared to what would be normal for this time of year. Now remember, not too long ago in the Mississippi at Memphis, we were looking at -5 and worried about those low flows. Well, right now from the Ohio, Evansville's 38 feet, that's the lower Ohio. So we're bringing in this water here into the middle Mississippi, really replenishing the lower Mississippi, and Memphis now is 21 feet. So I think the concern for low water is over, especially with La Nina. So here's the big picture. I've talked about this for a couple weeks. This weak polar vortex, we have a sudden stratospheric warming, and what that does at the stratosphere level is displaces the polar vortex, and typically it's in the central and eastern U.S. where we get a push of Arctic air. This is going to be an unusual displacement in that the Arctic air is going to push more into the western U.S. And we're going to have this very persistent pattern. Look at our jet stream this week. Area of low pressure in the west, area of high pressure in the east. And this low pressure is going to be associated with cold weather. The high is going to be associated with mild weather. And right along it is going to be the active jet stream, and that's going to show us where our panhandle hook systems are going to eject out towards the northeast. So we do expect another winter storm. It looks to me like it's going to be a similar path, but most likely the heaviest snow will be further to the north. I think it's also going to be a more widespread and heavier snow than last week. Here's our Wednesday jet stream. This is vorticity, or our energy, and it's shifting out right in here. And here's the surface: snow, ice, heavy rain, maybe even some severe storms. Now take a look at how persistent this pattern is. This is the next 5 days. You know, it looks like Birmingham is going to get into the 80s, South Texas even into the 90s. I'm not even sure if I want to say that's spring. That's almost early summer type weather. The foliage on trees is just going to be bursting. It's going to feel really like spring. And actually even a little bit further north up into parts of Kentucky and southern parts of Indiana, Ohio, maybe parts of Missouri, Oklahoma, milder than normal conditions. Meanwhile, Montana, North Dakota, 10 to 20 degrees below normal for our temperatures. And that doesn't change much as we get out through the end of February. Some shifting from week to week. I think right along where this boundary is, will be shifting. Sometimes it'll be shifting more this way, and sometimes it'll be shifting more this way. Even into March, though, the core of the southeast unusually warm. The western U.S., especially the north central, unusually cold. So this week I expect high elevation Cascades and Pacific Northwest snow, more snow in the Rockies. That's all with that cold air. And then once again, the Ohio, I think we're going to be continuing the flows coming down the Ohio here into the middle Mississippi, ramping those up. And then this is a band of snow. So the snow could be significant. We're going to have early in the week right through here, Montana up towards eastward into Minnesota, towards Minneapolis. And look at the probability. It's 6 inches of snow or 12 inches. So this could be a very heavy, very widespread snow potential as we go through the week. Okay, so the next 2 weeks, I want to show you how persistent this is going to be. The next 2 weeks, like I said, it's going to adjust maybe a little bit this way, a little bit this way, maybe eventually aligning a little bit more north and south than northwest, southeast, but still the western U.S. cold, the eastern U.S. generally mild. And if you want to see how long this will last, well, in case you missed it, here's our outlook for March, and really not much change. So we could be in a pattern that's going to last for a while. And to end today's briefing, here's our threat assessments. Look at the cold air by later this week. Now, this is a global model. It tends to overdo things, but still we're looking at well below normal, well below zero temperatures in the upper Midwest. There's our heavy rain, and there's our snow. So a very active week ahead. Some areas, beautiful spring weather. Other areas, pretty miserable winter weather. Take care.